Well, hello friends and welcome back. We have made some insane progress. It may not seem like a lot, but this is where so much of the work happens to make the aesthetic and that final outcome beautiful. I want to walk you through what we've been working on and then also walk you through some challenges because whenever you embark on a project like this, it is almost appropriate to anticipate things will arise and have the flexibility and the knowledge and the confidence in your contractor to navigate them. So here we are. Let's hit it. So a couple things. First and foremost, this right here is what is called a plate compactor. And this is what is used in patio preparation. When you are doing kind of like a commercial project, we're not hand tamping this down. What we're doing is we're bringing in a giant load of gravel and we're tamping down each layer as we go to make sure we have a beautiful, firm base. And then after we kind of bring in this like larger stuff, we're going to finish it off with a more fine, crushed rock that will actually create a really beautifully clean and smooth surface for our pavers to lay on. Now, the other thing that I wanted to kind of show you here is this retaining wall. So as you can see, this is the retaining wall that is just massive that was here when the house was built. And it is a singular wall, alrighty? And then this little one that they installed coming out here, they are not integrated. So that's the reason that we can come in here and easily put in a wall. You're also going to notice right here, we did step it back a foot. Now, aesthetically, I would have liked this to have aligned with the corner, but we are squeaking out every inch possible of this backyard because it is a small space. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to do a beautiful trio of pots right here, maybe something with like a really large tree potentially in the cornermost pot, because I want to soften all of these areas here, and I want to add an extra layer between kind of that house, the fence, and my client. The other thing you're going to notice is we are going row by row with this beautiful Belgard product, and this is really interesting. Instead of it having, what you're going to notice is this is a relatively straight face, because how this is installed is with a kind of like a channel pin system. So as each layer goes down, the guys are going to be driving pins through them, and that is going to interlock this entire system together. So the next thing that I wanted to just kind of jump you in on here real quick is we did have some existing irrigation going to the front garden that we needed to keep in place, as well as this clean out here. So what we've done is kind of like I showed you in the last update, we have snugged it as close to those utilities or utilitarian aspects as possible. And then we've taken this incredibly rocky, this is almost like builder grade rubble that you find on a lot of job sites. They just put garbage fill in when you're doing new construction. And what we're doing is we are scraping it away from the top surface and using that as our base layer. And then we are going to amend this entire stretch with good quality soil, good quality compost. It's just going to be fantastic. I want to talk you through a couple of things that came up that were a little unexpected. So the first and foremost is this right here. These are the irrigation valve boxes, and originally I had wanted to move these to a more discreet location. They're pretty discreet here. However, I wanted to add in a beautiful pathway around this area. That is not going to happen. So we are left with them here, and we will just have to work around it. And then as you can see, as we move towards the south, this is just the base prep right here for the turf that's gonna go in. And this back fence line, oh my gosh, I didn't even check in with you guys about that. Look at this beautiful new fence. The old one was absolutely crumbling. And so what we're gonna do here is, it is at a bit of an angle on this property. So we're gonna start at about 5 feet down there, and then it'll expand at kind of like a little bit of a wedge as it comes down here to the north. Last thing that I wanted to mention is I have been visiting the site at various points throughout the day because I like to see how the sun changes. And so what you're going to see here is as kind of anticipated, I've got just a tiny sliver of sun back there, and it is just about 4 o'clock. And then as we circle here, that entire wall and most of the rest of the backyard is headed into full shade. So these are peculiar planting conditions, but not impossible. So essentially back here in this corner, this remains in the shade all day long. So those are gonna be my little dapple shade items. And then this part, kind of mid-span, we hit probably around, I would say 10 in the morning, we start getting our sun exposure here. And here we are almost at 4 o'clock, and that border is about ready to dip into shade again. So I can tell you these are gonna be our sun elements down there, and then part shade conditions all along that fence line. All right, friends, I'll see you in a couple days for another update. Hey friends, so I'm going to start doing daily check-ins now. And the reason being is that we have kind of, when you're going through the arc of a construction project, you are like chugging up this really, really steep hill. You've got the demo, you've got exploration, of course, the design phase, all of that stuff chugging up to the top of the hill. And we are just at that cresting point where things are coming back together, things are feeling more like a garden, and we're starting to see our finished product just kind of like come into view. So I want to walk you through what the guys have gotten done the last 2 days. It's been a whirlwind of activity, but some really good stuff is going on. So the last time we came for a site check-in actually was yesterday, and you could see just the compacted base material. So it's like usually like 5/8 crushed. And as we talked about, we now have a finer grade crushed gravel on top. And what you're going to see is you're going to see these lines coming through, and you're probably like, why the heck are these lines here? Those are actually, I wonder, dang, I don't see any lying around here. But what the crew does is the crew actually will lay a pipe. And so this is what's left over after they have lifted those pipes. The reason they do that is because we want to create a level surface. So what they're going to do is they're going to lay the pipe. They are going to check the level to make sure we are slanted away from the foundation. And then they will actually take a board and go from point to point and actually carve it out flat to make sure we have a nice even surface all the way through. So, for those of you who have been on this journey for a little while, we revisited the concrete idea for the hot tub, and the client has decided, you know what, let's just do everything in the solid surface. And I've chosen a drivable paver. So this can withstand a car driving over it, so it can definitely stand a jacuzzi. So we will have pavers extending from the corner of this house all the way back. And then as we come back here, you can see it wrapping to the right. So tomorrow the crew is going to come in and finish grading all of this here. I'm betting that they're going to come in and do kind of like a final dusting of the smaller grit fabric or smaller grit material. However, I want to show you this wall that's coming down. It has turned out beautifully. It's a great little stair step, and you can actually see, I don't know if you can see the wire. Let me bring you around this way and see if it's easier to see. So one of the other things that you're going to see here is wiring sticking up. And this is because I'm actually going to use ledge lights all along the seating area. And the reason I'm doing this is because when you are working with a green belt, a really heavy canopy like this, these spaces can get really, really dark. And throughout the winter months, I want the client to be able to enjoy their garden. And so by introducing lighting that can come on kind of during those dusky hours, it allows my client to interact with their space, even when it is freezing cold outside. So we are going to be installing ledge lights all along here. It's going to go underneath this top cap. And then I'm also going to uplight a few landscaping trees, which I am very excited about. The next thing, just FYI, the reason, oh, get out of here. You, get out of here. Get out of here. The other thing that has gone on today is a lot of the bed prep. So when we checked in yesterday, we had not added any amendments, and back here, you can smell the lovely aroma of compost. Brian is loving it right now. But we are heavily amending all of these beds. So we have just a beautiful surface to plant into. We are actually going to save the planting for this project until September, when our temperatures start to dip a little bit, because usually in August it gets really hot. We've got a lot of forest fire smoke that rolls through the last couple years. And so I want to hold off in the hopes, and actually with the knowledge, that I know our plants are just going to be happier when we get them in the ground in September. One thing I felt really inspired by at the garden fling was the inclusion of containers within a border, within the landscape. Now, if you have a bed like this, it can feel very long and stretched out and narrow. And so sometimes I find that it's really important to create little vignettes as we go along. So while I knew I have a Japanese maple picked out for this corner, and that's going to be like a cool shade gardeny vignette, and I'm actually going to have more of a tall columnar style tree in this corner that's kind of going to nestle in my fire pit area. It left this mid stretch with a little something to be desired. Now, this client also loves color. They want bright pops of color in this landscape. So what we're actually going to do next week is we're going to go shopping, and I am going to be shopping with my client for a beautiful, tall, vase-shaped container that we can display as just a beautiful vessel in this landscape. They can display it empty. We can put all sorts of seasonal color in it. But what's going to be great is it's going to act as a focal point, so that when my client is looking down on it from the deck or out from the jacuzzi or even from the fire pit, it gives a solid anchor point. So it doesn't feel like we've got a moment here and a moment here, but that each part of our border has something different to say. And so instead of it being like here and here, it's going to almost feel more like a wave as we go down, which is more of the rhythm that we want to see in our landscape. So all in all, plans are coming together, plant selections are on the horizon, and oh, and FYI, when you do a landscape project like this, plants are always the last. So while I have my plant list already, I always like to save a little bit of wiggle room for the very end, because I don't know what I'm going to find during construction. Sometimes I will reveal microclimates as this project kind of progresses. And so the actual placement of the plants always goes last. It's always zoning, intention, hardscaping, and then the soft stuff. We're going to come back tomorrow because I have a feeling that we're going to have a lot of papers to look at. So we are back. It is after work hours, and the crew has been hard at work all day. And as you can see, they have gotten this first stretch of pavers done, and it looks so good. So a couple things: if you are doing a project like this on your own, or you have a contractor, one thing to keep in mind is where you are going to make your cuts. So visually, it's actually in your best interest to have as many whole pieces of brick on the outside as possible, and leave all of your offcuts on the inside. Typically speaking, when you have your cuts kind of hidden against a wall, it's less visually impactful than if, say, we were coming out here and we were stopping short. As it is right now, this beautiful 10-foot increment is perfect for the kind of like multi-dimensional pattern that we've got going on. And this pattern is turning out beautifully. It's like you can see. What's really funny is it actually highlights the brick that has been used on the house. So we've got some warm, like bluey gray tones coming through, a lot of that warm brown. It is just chef's kiss. And as it goes to the wall actually kicks it up more into the brown territory. And this is what I loved. So we actually went with a Belgard wall product, and I like that the color is ever so slightly more brown, because if I was to use this mutual product all the way through, it would almost look too uniform. And I think by doing the wall in a different but coordinating color scheme, it's perfect. The other thing to consider, and the reason that we went with kind of a 3 size pattern, is that we are doing this beautiful L-shaped patio. When you have an L-shaped patio, is that you do need to take into consideration how your pattern is going to shift throughout the space. Because we're using 3 different sizes and it is a little bit more of a creative pattern, we're able to make this turn into the L very seamlessly. If we were going with like a herringbone or a running bond, something like that, I find that those don't shift as easily when we are doing an L-shaped patio space. So tomorrow I'm going to be back for another site check-in. I would anticipate that they will finish this run and then start in on all of the cuts. They'll probably get all the cuts done at the very end. They typically like to save those for last. And then on Monday and Tuesday, it's probably going to be capping the wall and working on our turf installation. The turf for this area is probably going to take about a day and a half. And a lot of that is, again, compacting your base, getting all of that preparation in place, and then also working on the hatch for that access that needs to stay in place. So far, everything is coming together seamlessly. I'm going to check back tomorrow and I will show you some updates. Friends, welcome to the final walk of our major construction phase. So essentially the crew has finished all of the main pieces. So retaining walls, pavers, turf is in, have not seen the turf yet. And we are essentially in a holding pattern until next month because August, in my opinion, is the worst month to plant. It just is. September, our temperatures start to cool a little bit, and it isn't such blistering heat for these plants to get established and thrive. So that is why we're going to be taking a little pause after this, but I'm very excited to see what the crew's been working on. We're going to go down there. I want to do a final walk. I want to create a punch list for the contractor to work from to button up any items. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term punch list, basically it's like, this is our checklist, right? So we have gotten to essentially a completion point and we want to go through and just like, let's just fit and finish these few little items and make sure that the next phase is going to run super smoothly. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, wow, 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 wow. Oh, this is looking so good. Holy cow. This is looking good. This is looking good, good, good. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I literally have it. There were like the last 2 days of construction were the days that I just like, I refrained from visiting the job site. I wanted to be really surprised. You guys, I dare you. I dare you. I dare you to find that terrible hatch, that giant metal grate that we could not remove from their garden. Go ahead. Dare you. Dare you to find it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Standing on top of it. How good is the crew? This makes me so happy. I mean, can you imagine? They had all this grass and then just like a grate, like a hatch. Well, hey friends, let's get low for a second. This is turf. Now, not all turf is created equal. If we are going to take a closer look at this, what you're going to notice is you have dark blades, you have light blades, you even have some brown blades in here. And then what you're also going to notice if you part your turf, you have some more almost like frizzly pieces. I'm sure that's actually a proper term. Frizzle pieces. You have frizzle pieces in there. And essentially what you're doing, and then of course this is all laid on that compact base. There's sand underneath this. And what the guys do is they go through and they fluff this up. And it's all of those components that, number one, help this turf feel nice and fluffy. But then also, number two, no one wants artificial turf that looks super artificial. We all want just like that kind of like, you know, it's never going to look 100% like grass, but by adding different colors of green, by adding some brown pieces, this is going to look more lifelike than something that is a singular color. So if you are selecting turf, I would be interested to have you talk to the contractor about what turfs are available. Sometimes they have turf that's designed more towards pets. And more than anything, think very closely about how you want to utilize turf in your space, because I don't recommend this for everyone. I really don't. In fact, this is not something that I typically like to do because it is putting something artificial into a landscape. And so just think about it. But in this example, in this home, this made so much sense for how they live and because how this actually garden behaves. So, and I feel like there's a lot that's come a long way in terms of the technology. I think we're going to see a lot of turf recycling come online. So I'm feeling pretty good about that too. Okay. This is so exciting. So essentially, turf was the last thing that we had to go in. We added a paver restraint edge going all the way around. The neighbor's fence is actually kind of in disrepair. And so what we did is to prevent anything from like splashing against it, just to make it clean, we added about a 6-inch border of crushed gravel or crushed rock going just along the fence line, just because we don't want any additional water, soil, anything splashing up against it. Over here also, you're going to notice underneath the stairs, one thing that we really wanted to do is when I'm working with a client, it's really important to identify what are like the big things. What are the big priority items? And for this family, like low maintenance is a priority. When you have 2 kids, busy schedules, 2 working parents, anytime you add like extra little layers to a landscape, like extra complexity, that's more time in maintenance. It's more time that they are spending on their garden, which they love, as opposed to enjoying their garden. Does that make sense? So one thing that we added here, and this is not finished yet. Okay, spiders approach, fall's approaching when like it's Spider City out here. We're gonna still have the contractor add some kind of decorative screening here so we don't have to look at this. But this whole area was just constantly weeds, mud. Their dog loved to come down here and dig. I want easy, easy, easy. I don't want this homeowner to think about anything. I want them just pure enjoyment. Now over here, you are going to notice their hose bib here. When you're doing a project, it's really important to identify all your mechanicals and how you're going to access them. So this allows them to come in here and access when we might have a tub that's right here. So there are going to be a couple of container situations that we are going to be adding here. So we're going to have a hot tub right here. And when you have a hot tub, it's kind of fun to have it feel like a little nestled in. So the roof is going to get like a beautiful treatment. We've already waterproofed the deck, or rather the other contractors waterproofed it. And then back here, as almost like a bookend, we're going to bring in modern rectangular planters so that when people are seated in the hot tub, they're just backed against beautiful foliage, grasses, just lots of wispy, wonderful things. This is another big deal for me. And I think it's another big deal for the homeowner. This is the first time anyone has been able to see out this window in probably the last like 10 years. It's crazy. There was so much dirt and debris, so many shrubs just shrouding this entire area. And now when they're not using this to watch the game and have movies and all that, they can have these curtains open, and it just provides beautiful light into that space, which is amazing. Okay, I want to show you a couple of the things that popped in that I'm very excited about. Okay. This is our seat wall. Now, when you are in the city, when you are in an urban setting, you typically are not going to have these big palatial quarter acre lots. You are going to have something that's like 5,000 square feet, sometimes 3,000 square feet, just depending on where you're at. And so everything in this garden had to be simple, straightforward, multitasking, and this wall is no exception. So we did go with a wall that has a vertical installation. What that does is it allows us to not utilize a bunch of setback. The other thing we did is we brought in, you can kind of see like the blend of colors that were in the paver that we chose. And what's really fun is when we brought in this wall contained a bit more brown, which I was very excited about because I don't like matchy-matchy, but I do like everything to sing the same song. And then to balance it, we brought in this cool cap that just, I mean, it makes all of these gray tones in these pavers pop. It is so lovely. Okay, I'm going to do a whole separate episode on landscape lighting, but landscape lighting is awesome. Landscape lighting is transformative. If you live in a climate where you have, in the wintertime, the sun is setting at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it can get hard. A lot of people get seasonal affective disorder, and that is no joke. So landscape lighting is one of those ways that we really combat this. Now, we're not leaving landscape lighting on all night, so we're just like messing with the wildlife. But what we're doing is we're just extending that little enjoyment. And by adding landscape lighting, all of these views out the windows suddenly become more enjoyable. So I want to bring you in on one of these little details. This beautiful little nugget is one of my favorite lighting elements. This is called a ledge light. It is very low profile. It's delicate. It's nothing too over the top. We went with a simple black finish. I felt like this kept it a little bit modern, a little bit contemporary. And this is not a focal feature, but it does serve a very important function. If you are not outside, or even if you are outside and say you're enjoying the fire pit area, you don't want bright lights in your face. But what this will do is it will provide a really gentle wash just down the facade. These are also great when you are, maybe you have a retaining wall that is alongside a pathway. This is very delicate lighting. And we have extended this all the way through, every couple feet. And what you're going to notice also is we followed the curvature of the land and stepped it down. So now, when we are here at the fire pit, it is like cozy as can be. We don't have any bright lights shining in our faces, yet we do have just this subtle glow that's going to surround it. So I'm very excited. And look at this. This is like perfect seat wall height. The other thing you're going to notice we did is we went with a really simple, incredibly beefy cap. This is very important when you are doing a seat wall because you don't want someone to sit on this and be rocking or feel kind of like insecure on a seating surface. And so this is just chef's kiss. Okay, I want to walk you through one other change. Originally, this wall actually ended here. And what we were going to do is we were going to essentially have a little dotted pathway kind of come back here and go over to the fence, the gate over here. However, when we really looked at use of space and we were really like, okay, how often are we using this gate? We came to the conclusion that we're actually not using the gate that frequently. So why are we going to design around something that gets use only a couple times out of the year versus how this family wants to live the majority of the time? So here's what we've done instead. We want this to be a very full bed. We're talking hydrangeas. I want to bring in like maples, maybe a dogwood. Lots of color. We're thinking blues and oranges. Very excited about that. But we still want to be able to access this gate here. So what we're actually going to do, and this is one of the punch list items, is we are installing a singular step right back here. Now, most of the family is taller than me. However, Mama is one of my girlfriends and we're on the short end of the spectrum. And so it's kind of like, yes, I can get over, but, oh, and we're going to do just a couple little steppers here. Nothing fancy, surrounded with some ground cover, just on with our day. When you go to walk over this, while this is no problem for her husband or her boys, for us shorties, it is a bit of a problem. So we are actually going to be installing a really simple step right here that'll give just a boost to get over. So it's simple, it's easy. And so when they do want to access this back gate, it's easy to do so. Irrigation boxes stayed here. And the other thing that's lovely about this is you don't visually see this, and I can actually plant with beautiful shrubs all the way around. And you're gonna see this on the plans. So I'll do a whole episode on our plant selections, layout, all of that. But one thing I kind of love to do is I love to anchor certain spaces. And so what I'll be doing is I will actually be bringing in a tree, probably planting it around here. It's going to be a tree with a smaller root system. So it's not going to be up in this business. But I just feel like this is going to anchor this corner super beautifully. We can have big blousy shrubs all in here. And so when you are seated in this fire pit area, having great conversation, you feel like, I always want a garden to make you feel held. I think it's kind of a weird thing to say, but at the same time, it's your home and you should feel held in your home. Okay. Last but not least, I was texting with the mom over the weekend, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, where'd you get your table?" And I was like, "Yardbird, there's a showroom in Bellevue." So this is what I think is the most wonderful. And some people may think like, okay, what are these markers of success? Maybe you're in a magazine, maybe you're featured on House or Pinterest or this, that, and the other thing. But you know what I consider a marker of success? My markers of success are, does the family immediately want to move in and start living in this space? If that is their gut reaction, their first step is like, let's shop for some furniture to live here. Or one time I did a garden right around Halloween, and I came back the next week and they had like all these like skeletons, decorations everywhere. And the mom was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that." And I was like, no, that is exactly what I want to have happen. I want you to immediately feel like this is your home and this is always how it should have been. So, oh my gosh, I think I barely have anything to pass along to the contractor. Just that step. I think maybe I may explore either with the contractor that's doing the deck or this contractor, even just adding a pressure treated board down here to the neighbor's fence, just because it doesn't look very good, just to tidy that up. And then the contractor who's doing the deck is actually going to wrap these posts. So you aren't going to see this. This isn't going to be the final aesthetic. The final aesthetic is going to be tailored. It's going to be manicured. It's going to have white trim that's matching the rest of the house. We're going to have a beautiful, probably like beadboard underlayment for the roof. And we've been talking about doing like a light blue color as a nod to where the homeowners met in New Orleans with those light sky blue porches. You are looking at one tickled designer. This is a beautiful clean slate for me to now come in September, and we're gonna work some serious plant magic back here. This is ready to be lived in. And we're gonna be back for planting this property, probably I would say second or third week in September, so you'll see the video shortly thereafter. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna see you in the next one. And in the meantime, go out there and say hello to your garden for me. Bye.